Okay, so let's start. Welcome to all of you. This is the last day of the Copernicus Marine Service General Assembly. So the session today will deal with our future activities for Copernicus2. I will start to chair the first session. Which is dealing with our plans on drivers on plan for Copernicus2. The session will be organized as follows. I will give you an overview of our drivers on plan for Copernicus2, and then we'll have a detail of 3 new activities we plan to progressively implement, dealing with the new digital services, coastal, in cooperation with member states on Arctic. We'll then have a roundtable, which will deal with the interface and how they will evolve in Copernicus2 interfaces with the other Copernicus services on EMODnet. We'll have insight from our 2 advisory committee with the 2 chairs, so Neville Smith and Felipe Fernandez, and we'll have a Q&A session. So please, as the past 2 days, use the Q&A tool to ask questions. We'll make sure that we answer the question during the Q&A session. And if not, it will be answered after the General Assembly. Okay, I will now move to the presentation on Copernicus Marine Service drivers and plan for Copernicus2. So the presentation will be as follows. I will start to remind you where we are today, and this was presented and discussed the last 2 days. And I will then detail our plan for Copernicus2, so the drivers and how the plan was developed with our stakeholders. So the Copernicus Marine Service today. So today, the Copernicus Marine Service is a fully operational European Union service. It's providing core information on the blue, green, and white ocean for the past, the present, and the future. It has now almost 30,000 subscribers. It is a user and policy-driven service. That means that we have a lot of activities dealing with the user support and user engagement that was presented yesterday. We are not only providing core information on the state of the ocean at global and regional scale, but we're also working on assessment activity with the ocean state report activities on the ocean monitoring framework, including the ocean state report summaries, which are an important component of the service that we provide today to move from science to society. So as a service which is responsive to user and policy needs, we set up efficient mechanism to interact with our user over time, to develop a service evolution strategy that is responsive to those needs, which are systematically gathered, analyzed, and transferred into service evolution solution. This is an extremely important component of our service today. In terms of activities, so we rely on a highly skilled producer that are cooperating in Europe. So we had an extensive presentation the last 2 days and interaction with those producers that have been working quite hard to improve the product line and to develop new products on advanced product. So those producers are together, feeding thousands of intermediate users, so our 20,000 subscribers, and we are serving a wide range of applications on supporting environmental and climate policies. So in the 3 pillars for sustainable development, environment, society, and economy. So to summarize, our assets, which are very important elements before starting Copernicus2. First, I think we demonstrated our capabilities to run a state-of-the-art European operational marine service, which is responsive to user needs. We have a well-established approach to organize evolution of the CMEMS system of systems. So every year we have a release, 2 or 3 releases of new products and services. We rely on the strong networks of skilled producers and also unique pooling of scientific expertise. User uptake on our interaction with the user, a key element of the service, but also a marketing approach to anticipate future user need. We have set up successful partnership with the research and user community. So through our user uptake and service evolution program, but also with the links we established with the Horizon 2020 research program. Last but not least, integration of international activities. This is key for our activities. So we have strong link with the Ocean Predict and Blue Planet international program, but also with all activities that are developed at international level. So this is the status as of today. So where do we want to go as part of the Copernicus Marine Service for the next 7 years? So first, to remind drivers, so those are well known. As you know, the oceans are a major source of food, energy, strong contributor to the global economy. And they face, however, strong pressure due to climate change and other human activities. So there is an increasing and pressing need of improved ocean monitoring and forecasting capabilities from global to coastal scale, both to understand and predict the weather and climate, mitigation and adaptation to climate change, sustainable management of the ocean, development of the blue economy, and last but not least, to better protect marine ecosystem and biodiversity. The ocean is quite high as well in the political agenda at European level and at international level. So European level, just to mention here, all the European policies dealing with the ocean and the sustainable management of the ocean, with a focus here on the Green Deal, also the mission Starfish 2030, restore our ocean and water. So it's really a strong ambition of Europe as far as the ocean is concerned. And we are also in an international framework where the role and importance of the ocean is well understood and recognized, in particular with the development of the decade of ocean science, which will be a fundamental aspect of the services for the next 7 years. The song, someone Okay. So the main driver guiding our long-term evolutions, for first, this ocean is higher than ever on the political agenda. We know, based on the feedback we receive from our users, that there is a need for the continuity of our blue, white, green offer and maintain the consistency between these different elements of the offer, between the blue, the white, and green. Of course, continue to improve it. But there are also increasing user and policy needs that are calling for new services. So how did we plan the development of our future offer for Copernicus Marine Service for the next 7 years? First, we take stock of CMEMS achievements and learning in Copernicus1 that were presented the last 2 days, user and policy requirements. I will come back to this. Of course, we take into account the evolution of the satellite, in particular Sentinel mission and in-situ observing system, all science and technology advances, so all the research and development, service evolution, R&D, Horizon Europe projects that have been developed, and also the willingness to maintain international leadership and remain state of the art. So this has been an interactive process with the European Commission, with our science and user advisory bodies, member states, and other Copernicus services. So in terms of user and policy needs, the user requirements for Copernicus2 are detailed in an important document prepared by the European Commission, which is on the expression of user need for the Copernicus program that result from extensive discussion organized by the European Commission, but also by the Copernicus Marine Service to gather all these requirements, which are user and policy driven and for the different areas. So it's covering the different applications for fishery management, aquaculture, marine renewable energy, maritime transform, safety, climate, and so on. And it calls for new products and new services for coastal, high resolution, climate projection, on biology and biodiversity. So this is so from this we developed an ambitious plan because we are covering a 7-year period on what we try to do is to allow a stage implementations that will depend on budget implementation, user needs and priorities. We know that will evolve over time, and of course, feasibility and maturity. So we define, and this is something which was common to all Copernicus services, 3 levels of implementation: baseline, enhanced continuity, and new services. Baseline is what we would start with, given the present budget constraint for the Copernicus service, which is continuity of the present activities. But we also have defined this enhanced continuity on new services that I will detail. For all of this level of implementation, we work to really match the product and service portfolio versus user and policy needs. This was an important work which was done with the different stakeholders on both for the baseline, for the enhanced continuity, and for new services. So the baseline, which is the continuity, of course, with some regular incremental evolution of the current service. So continue the blue, white, green offer, observational model, global and regional, expert assessment with the Ocean State Report, with a strong focus on national uptake, on making sure that we maintain a strong, important international impact, in particular in the framework of the UN Decade of Ocean Science. The regular incremental evolution of products and services that we will maintain. We deal with improving product quality and product quality assessment. We'll also make sure that what we already initiated in Copernicus1 will be strengthened, in particular the link with the WEkEO DIAS platform to provide cloud services to users, and also to develop dedicated sectorial offers per application on policy. That's something, strong feedback we got from our user. And we will expand and develop further our training and capacity building offer. We'll work on the integration of the new Sentinel mission, so the 3rd unit of the constellation of Sentinel 1, 2, and 3, on the integration of Sentinel 6 very soon, plus new in-situ observing system, in particular BGC Argo, which will be a game changer for our green offer. In terms of governance, in addition to our 2 advisory committees, we propose to set up a national marine stakeholder committee to reinforce the links with member states. Finally, in terms of program consistency, the objective is to make sure that we produce marine data also for the other Copernicus services, so reinforcing the link with the different services, and I will come back to this. So in terms of enhanced continuity, so major product improvements, that's really what needs to be done to better answer user needs and to keep the service state of the art. And we define a series of major product improvements, improve digital cloud service. So 1 step further compared to what we will do in the baselines. This will be detailed in the next presentation. Higher resolution, ensemble forecast, and extended up to 1 month forecast. Arctic, where a lot is asked for the Arctic, RC/CO2 fluxes on long-term reanalysis. So we will focus on improved digital cloud service on Arctic in the next talk. That are our 2 first priority for this product improvement. All these activities will be developed depending on priorities. We also rely on precursor projects, either H2020 projects that are running today, on future Horizon Europe project, and of course, budget constraints. In terms of new services, so there are new and innovative services to meet the new ocean monitoring and forecasting challenges that are required by European policy, so in particular the Green Deal and user, and to remain at the forefront of international development. And here we have a strong priority on coastal, which will be a new partnership with member states to better monitor the coastal zone between the European service and national services. But we are also willing to progressively develop the offer for marine biology to answer challenges of the policy. So in terms of fishery management, aquaculture management, which calls for improved products, in particular the way we model and forecast the high-level traffic. And finally, we expect on the longer run to develop the offer in terms of climate projections in a cooperation with the climate change service, but here dealing with downscaling on the coastal zone of long-term projection, and also projection of ecosystem. Again, those services will be developed over time, depending on priorities and budget constraints. So just to summarize, our plan for Copernicus2. So first is the continuity of the blue, white, green offer. That's really the first thing that users are asking for. on a series of major evolutions that will be developed depending on priorities and budget, with 3 priorities over those one, which are coastal, Arctic, and digital services that will be detailed in the next presentations. In terms of interaction with our ecosystem, so this was discussed previously during the General Assembly, but those will be continue to be quite important. So we continue to interact regularly with the satellite component, ESA and Eumetsat, make sure that we guarantee the uptake of future Sentinel mission. Same for the in-situ component with EEA, European Ocean Observing System, and Eurogoose. Copernicus services on EMODnet, we discuss this in the roundtable, and I have a slide to discuss this. We expect a stronger partnership with the Horizon Europe Research and Development Program, because the Tier 3 long-term R&D is essential for the new services that we plan to develop. There will be a new partnership with this major initiative, European initiative on Destination Earth, on digital twin oceans, that will benefit from Copernicus, but on the other hand, Copernicus will also benefit from this initiative to improve the services we can provide to the user. Of course, interacting with the EU DG on EU policies, on integration in international program, and I will repeat here again, this is a unique opportunity with this United Nations Decade of Ocean Science. So we expect to make a strong contribution to the decade, and help the decade to develop its goal. Interfaces with the other Copernicus services before closing. So we have discussed with different services how we could reinforce the links. So we discussed a series of activities. So we could prepare specific products together with the other services. So in particular with the climate change service, so to organize together the reprocessing of satellite ocean ECVs, providing sea level and wave forecasts for the emergency service, helping the CO2 service with the provision of air flux of CO2 on the sourcing, which is proposed to monitor tropical cyclones from Sentinel-1 for the emergency service. We also will work together, the different services, on the Copernicus knowledge hubs that will gather the ensemble of information generated by several Copernicus services. So this is an important evolution of the Copernicus program, and we are identified to lead on the coastal and Arctic hubs. Okay, just to conclude, I mean, our plan for Copernicus2. So our objective is to remain a marine reference worldwide by creating more varied value and fostering further the service uptake. We have an ambitious plan with stage implementation. We start with this baseline, continuity of service. This is, of course, most important part, but we also have an ambition for new services that answer new needs from European policy and from our user. We develop with the other Copernicus services sectorial approach, in particular for coastal and Arctic. And finally, it's very important that we'll continue to interact with the upstream observing system agency to strengthen marine in-situ coordination, work with ESA, Eumetsat, and the European Commission on future Sentinel, and help with the design and impact studies, including advocacy for the observing system. Thanks. This is end of my presentation. I think we can now move to the next presentation. Don't forget to ask questions through the Q&A tool, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. So I will now give the floor to Renaud Dussurget from Mercator Ocean International and Graziano Mori from Eumetsat, and they will provide a short overview of the future new digital offer in Copernicus2. So Renaud, Graziano, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Perfect. So, hi everyone. So I'm Renaud Dussurget from Mercator Ocean International, and I will present you today with the help of Graziano Mori from Eumetsat some slides about a new digital offer, and that's called Empowering CMEMS with the WEkEO DIAS and a future DTO. So, just give me a minute. Okay. So the need for these new digital services was driven by a few factors. So first, the need to aggregate new sources of marine data to CMEMS. Also to improve the interoperability and the connectivity of CMEMS with other services and other external infrastructures, to consolidate the actual CMEMS software with additional computing resources and online services, and also make the infrastructure ready for hosting the next generation of computing and modeling tools, and foster the usage of artificial intelligence on CMEMS data. So this Copernicus Marine Data Store will continue the digital transformation of CMEMS services. We started in 2018, basically, when we first moved CMEMS data into the cloud. So in this quite simplified picture schematic, you can see on the left the CMEMS products, which are generated by an already quite complex network of production centers. There are about 50 of them with their own infrastructures and computing workflow, and delivering their data to the central dissemination units. And in association with the central information systems and dedicated interfaces and protocols, the users can access to the data through the central web portal that has been presented in the past days, and with the help of the central service desk. Just give me a okay. So then CMEMS Cloud was federated to the WEkEO Data and Information Access Service, and has been granted access to data from other Copernicus services, and access to cloud computing resources and new tools such as Jupyter Notebooks. Then in this new phase of Copernicus, we will go toward further integration of the Marine Data Store with the WEkEO infrastructure, and get further access to the high performance access to Copernicus data, further benefit from the scalability and flexibility that it offers, better interconnected with the main European virtual infrastructures, and this will allow us to develop new services and extend the actual portfolios. Thanks to the help of projects such as H2020 Blue Cloud and other initiatives such as Digital Twin of the Ocean project, we will be developing new features in this Marine Data Store, starting first with the aggregation of new sources of data, and data from partner programs such as EMODnet, for instance, from the European Research and Infrastructure Centers, the ocean observing systems, but also access to new kind of data such as citizen science data and data from the smart sensors and the Internet of Things. And we will further extend the usage of computational resources, and also continue the interconnection with external infrastructures such as the main infrastructures from the Destination Earth program, and here, for instance, the European Open Science Cloud and the Euro HPC supercomputers. We'll further develop the tools as well, and develop new configurations of Jupyter notebooks, and develop also the access to new virtual and research environments from that will allow users from the beginner to the more skilled developers to access to the data, and to manipulate it, to transform it to get the information they are looking at for, and further develop interactive tools such as workflow editors and advanced thematic viewers. So relying not only on the data, the computational power, this network of infrastructures and these more interactive tools, we will be able to build up a real platform of I have got some. Okay, develop a real platform from the real digital twin of the ocean platform with access to more interactive modeling tools, and accessing to artificial intelligence and marine tools and machine learning and deep learning algorithms, and build a capacity to simulate what-if scenarios in order to better answer to the user and policy needs. For instance, as an illustration, this could be tools for getting information on how local biogeochemistry and fish population in a given region would be affected by a warm event, for instance. So thank you for your attention. I will now leave the floor to Graziano for a more detailed focus on WEkEO.
Thank you very much, Renaud, and good morning to everybody. Yes, as Renaud was already anticipating, WEkEO is already today an integral part of the CMEMS services, but also of other Copernicus services. And definitely the plan of WEkEO is to reinforce this integration in the Copernicus 2.0. So I will start with some background information very quickly. WEkEO is a platform, cloud platform that is operated by industry with strong support by industry, but is governed by partnership between the three organizations today, Eumetsat, ECMWF, and Mercator Ocean, that together decided in 2017 to join the efforts and join the expertise to build this WEkEO platform. So the first version that was a demonstrator, the V0 WEkEO, became live in June 2018. And after about 18 months, the first operational version went live at the beginning of 2020, what we call the version V1. And our plan is to progressively upgrade this version with enhanced feature, also collecting the feedback from the user and from the services that are in partnership. And this will then extend also in the Copernicus 2.0 with new version, V2, V3, and so on. So there is really a long-term perspective. Next slide, Renaud. Yes, this is to demonstrate that already today WEkEO has a strong support by the user. You see the trends growing in terms of registered WEkEO user. We are today close to 3,000 registered users. And also in terms of hosted projects on WEkEO, the growth has been constant so far. We are above 120. And you can see from the bottom that the user profile is really quite diverse. WEkEO had always the connotation of being a sort of institutional platform compared to the other DS. But you see, this is not really the case. The user profile includes also a commercial entity, bigger and smaller SMEs, education, and of course also national institution and private and individual. So really the user base is very diverse. Next slide. Now, looking at the future, at the WEkEO plans for Copernicus 2.0, so we want really to further develop into the Copernicus paradigm. That means at the beginning, Copernicus is composed by the space infrastructure, so the various satellites, sentinels, plus the services, the Copernicus services. We want to enhance this by plugging in the digital infrastructure. So to enhance and build up on the space infrastructure and services, to build up a digital infrastructure that allow to somehow maximize the benefit for the user of the already Copernicus assets. Next slide. And how to achieve that? So we believe that WEkEO will become a fundamental element for mutualized and centralized access to Copernicus services and Sentinel data. So to become really the hub that made easy accessible to all users the sum of the satellite data from the various Sentinels plus the data products produced by the various Copernicus services. And we need to strengthen this aspect that is already today like that, but will be enriched with new product, new services, and of course, as soon as new satellite data will be launched, I have in mind the CO2M in a few years, the Sentinel-4, 5s that will be launched soon will become part of the WEkEO offer. So, and is also to offer a pre-packaged cloud processing common access for all the services that are part of the partnership, and in particular, in addition to the partners that today are in the WEkEO consortium, recently also the European Environmental Agency has joined us for implementing the Copernicus 2.0. So in a nutshell, you see, in the partnership is between Eumetsat, Mercator, ECMWF, and European Environmental Agency. So we are already in our hands all the Copernicus satellite data, the marine monitoring service, the climate, atmosphere monitoring service, and good part also the land monitoring services. So WEkEO is really putting together all this. And how WEkEO can become the platform for enabling the delivery of Copernicus environmental related services. First of all, by hosting the Copernicus service itself. In some cases, this is already the case today, but maybe this will further develop. By hosting projects that are related to the services, and so offering hosted infrastructure to run those projects, and favoring the cross collaboration among the various services. So being WEkEO really an horizontal infrastructure that can favor the collaboration and cross-fertilization across services. Next slide. Of course, we are also looking outside Copernicus. This was also mentioned by Renaud, the interaction with the other EU initiative. We think that WEkEO can become really the contribution of Copernicus to other initiatives supporting the Green Deal and the EU digital agenda, such, for example, Destination Earth. So next slide. Thank you. This is essentially the conclusion of my presentation. So really, I hope you could see the benefit of this platform. This is a distributed architecture, so is an open architecture, so really open to further expand and help you in providing your services. Thank you very much.
So thanks a lot, Graziano and Renaud, for this overview of what we could do in terms of digital services, the interface on the strong asset of the WEkEO platform that we will anyway incorporate in the baseline, and we expect to develop it more for the extension of the new services that we propose. We now move to the next presentation. We will detail what we expect to do for the coastal ocean. So the presentation will be given by Angélique Melet. Angélique, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pierre. Okay, so in this short presentation, I will provide some highlights on our ambition in Copernicus2, so about the next MFF, in building a new coastal offer with member states. And we've heard about the last few days in this General Assembly, and we've heard it on a recurrent basis, the need for more information on coastal zones and for various applications. And this comes as no surprise. given the tremendous environmental, social, and economic value of coastal zones. So just to illustrate that, in Europe, 50 million people are living in a low elevation coastal zone. From the environmental point of view, marine coastal ecosystems are amongst the most productive on Earth, and they provide a lot of services to our society. And for instance, they yield 90% of the global fishery outputs. And regarding the economy, there is also a strong contribution of coastal zones to the global ocean economy, which is growing. And we can mention, for instance, trades and shipping here, but many other sectors, of course. So there is a high demand of ocean monitoring data from users and for various applications that I've been highlighting during this General Assembly, but also to support policies and resilience to climate change. And there are many policies that are directed or relevant for coastal zones. For instance, the flood directives, maritime spatial planning, but of course also the Green Deal. And of course, given the high development and activities in the coastal zones, they are also under a high level of pressure from anthropic activities, but also from climate change. So it's really a key sector for Copernicus now. So over the last few years, Copernicus has expanded its, Copernicus Marine Service has expanded its portfolio towards coastal zones, and we provide monitoring of some key variables for the coastal zones and for various marine coastal hazards. And we have an illustration here of a non-exhaustive one on variables that can be monitored in CMEMS and of different hazards. And we are using satellite in situ observations and numerical models to do so. But of course, we could do much more. And we had a workshop and consultations over the last few years to better identify priorities for development regarding the coastal zone in CMEMS. And at the request of the European Commission, we delivered a roadmap for the evolution of Copernicus marine and land services to better serve coastal users. And we produced this roadmap together with the land service. But it also involves the other Copernicus services, and discussions have been engaged, especially with the Copernicus Climate Change Service and Copernicus Emergency Management Service, so that we can build together and in synergy a better offer for coastal zones. So in line with this coastal roadmap, there are two main lines of activities that we would like to develop in Copernicus2 regarding coastal zones. And the first one is dealing with a pan-European core monitoring of coastal zones with improved and new satellite-derived product, really targeting coastal zones. So we started to move in that direction in Copernicus1, and for instance, we delivered high-resolution along-track altimetric data for sea level, and that was released in last December. We will release in May Sentinel-2 turbidity data for coastal zones at high resolution, but also chlorophyll, suspended particulate matter, and so on. And also Sentinel-3 OCHI ocean color data at full resolution in coastal zones. And I'm focusing here on satellite data, but of course, there's also a move in situ data for coastal zones, including, for instance, tide gauge data, as we've heard earlier during this General Assembly. But again, we would like to do really much more and a step forward in this monitoring of coastal zones by providing new products, such as a dynamic time-evolving nearshore bathymetry that could be developed in relation with EMODnet. And this is really a crucial environmental parameter for many applications dealing with coastal zones. And we would like to provide a dynamic product here. We could also provide high-resolution winds for coastal zones, notably based on Sentinel-1 SAR data, spectral wave information also in European coastal zones based notably on Sentinel-1, and even go towards perhaps detection of plastic debris and monitoring of marine litter, depending on R&D advances on those topics in the coming years. And of course, those developments are depending on priorities that will also be set with member states and of precursor project. We're starting in that direction with Service Evolution Project, H2020 project, but it will also depend on other projects, including Horizon Europe. And it will also, of course, depends on budget constraints. The second main line of new activities that we would like to develop is the co-production of model-derived information between the Copernicus Marine Service and member state services. So Copernicus Marine Service delivers regional model outputs, And at a more national and local scale, most member states of the European Union with a maritime border do operate their own operational ocean system. And they provide data to many public and private sectors that are using them for various sectors and implementation of and for the implementation of policies at the national level. So what we'd like to do here is to provide a fault coupling between the Copernicus Marine Service and a series of operational coastal models that are operated by member states, and that would be based on a co-designed cloud environment and co-designed tools for the co-production of ocean information for coastal zones, and that could be based on the Copernicus Marine Data Store, for instance. We would need forcing conditions. We could provide forcing conditions to the national systems, but we will also need enhanced consistency in the represented processes that we have in the regional and coastal models, dealing with physics, but also with biogeochemistry. And that includes, for instance, tides and high frequency processes, better incorporation and account of coupling effects between, for instance, the ocean, the waves, the benthic ocean, and so on, going toward smaller scales as well. And we're starting in that cooperation in Copernicus2, but in Copernicus1, but there is still work to do in that direction. We would need, on a more technical level, consistent data sets and forcing fields for the two sets of models. Operational and flexible interface should be developed, and the use of common standards, and so on and so forth. An important point also is dealing with some standardized methods to couple hydrological models with global, regional, and coastal ocean models. And regarding that last point, we could provide in Copernicus2 past, present, and forecasted time series of standardized model river discharges, dealing with freshwater for the ocean, but also nutrients, particulate, and dissolved matter for biogeochemistry. We had some project on that topic in Copernicus1, and there is, of course, also the work done by the Emergency Management Service with the EFAS system, which provide river discharges. Finally, on that co-production of model-derived information, we could also integrate in the Copernicus Marine Service portfolio coastal model-derived information so that users can find this information directly on the Copernicus Marine Service website and portfolio. And again, those lines of activity should be developed depending on priorities set with member states and precursor project and budget constraints. So really our ambition here for the coastal zones is to build a much stronger offer to better answer user and policy needs for what we call the brown ocean. It could be the turquoise ocean or whatever shade of color, depending on where you are, to really bring it up to speed with our monitoring of the blue, white, and green ocean, because as was said also previously, monitoring is really a first step towards action and for a better and more efficient implementation of European policies. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Angelique, for this presentation, which is an important evolution we like to progressively implement in cooperation and in a co-production, co-design with member states. We now move to the next ambition we have for the Arctic Ocean with two presentations, one by Gilles Garric from Mercator Ocean, and the other one by Guy Duchaussois. So Guy Duchaussois as rapporteur and member of the the Polar Expert Group of the European Commission. So to highlight how we could evolve the Copernicus Marine Service offer for the Arctic Ocean. So Gilles, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. Good morning to everyone. Do you see my screen? That screen?
Yes.
Okay. So with Guy, we will present what we want to do in CEMEMS for the Arctic Ocean. So I am from Mercator Ocean International, and Guy will make a short presentation of the outcome of the Polar Expert Group who made since a few years before. So I will start with what are the main drivers of the Arctic Ocean. Of course, the EU Arctic policy is an important driver for the CMEMS and also for all the Copernicus services. The current policy centers around 3 priorities: climate change and safeguarding the Arctic environment, sustainable development in and around the Arctic, and international cooperation on Arctic issues. This EU current Arctic policy has been set up in 2016, and the EU recently launched a consultation in 2020 in order to prepare an updated approach in revising these 3 priorities and identify possible new policies areas to be developed. Fighting climate change and its impacts on protecting the environment, promoting sustainable development to the benefit of those who live here, like the indigenous people, improving our knowledge of the changes, remain key objectives for the region and underpin the important need to closely monitor rapid Arctic change. Another driver is all the Arctic and Antarctic projects funded by the European Commission. An example here that we have a total of 15 projects for Arctic only, which has been funded by the European Commission for the last 10 years. So this cluster merges a broad spectrum of research and coordination activities, ranging from the most up-to-date findings on sea ice, but also on permafrost on continental topics, from enhancing observation to improving prediction, and also from networking research station to coordinating access to icebreakers. And I think it is of great importance for CMEMS to follow these outcomes and be aware of the latest development in order to be able to uptake all the findings. Of course, Copernicus services are user-driven, as we know and as we all know. And for the Arctic, especially with a high and increasing demands of the Arctic information and arising from very different stakeholders. It is high in terms of poor knowledge that we have actually of this harsh and rapid severe changing environment. This is also high in terms of relative poor skills of current operation system for the ocean, weather and land compared to other regions. And this poor skill of current operation system have to be closely linked with the poor observation we have of these remote areas. There is also an increasing demands, as we all know, related to the sustainable economic development challenged by these harsh conditions. Okay. To be brief, I present here a synthetic view of what we are proposing for the ice floating parameters. The ice floating parameters have been prioritized by the PEG, and I think we mentioned that later on. So you can see here all the ice floating parameters for the Arctic only. I don't enter into detail because the CCD have already done that in Tuesday. But it's gathering model and satellite data, near real-time and past long-time series, and 15 products are derived from satellite from this catalog. We have in total 28 ice products in CMEMS from sea ice concentration, which is the main parameter that we are using for the model, for the validation, but also for the assimilation. New data has entered recently in the catalog, like the sea ice thickness, but also individual icebergs. Okay, sorry about it. I have to shift one thing. Okay. And you can already find most of this product in the catalog. And we have, in the framework of Kepler, make a sort of status of what was present in CMEMS catalog. And Kepler is a H2020 project, which is still ongoing. And this is a project which is supposed to prepare a roadmap in the form of recommendation for the Copernicus program and services. And this is an ambitious goal, and we hope that we will succeed in doing that. And thanks to a survey with the different stakeholders, including end users in the form of European citizens, or adding interest in the polar region, intermediate users, adding value to Copernicus product, and also the Copernicus service itself, and providers and the European Commission itself. This project has been performed in the light of the HPCM of the Sentinel extensions. So we have performed this analysis of the essential ice variables present in the CMEMS catalog. Here we have an example of a near real-time product. We have classified this in terms of spatial resolution, in accuracy, but also in terms of observation use for their validation, or even for their validation. And also the in-situ availability are mentioned with their near real-time accessibility. So we can clearly see that, or in orange, you can see that the data or the parameters are partially present or partially with partial accuracy and can be improved. This is the case, for example, for the ice surface temperature, which is present for the observation, but we don't disseminate it in model, but this is a proxy variable that we could have less effort to disseminate in a catalog. And in red, you can clearly see that there is missing data which are not present at all in the catalog, that which are essential for the comprehensive, for the understanding of the Arctic and the monitoring of the Arctic. And also, for example, you have a lack of data, of observation data, also in real time for sea ice age, meltpoints, or for leads detection. From this status, from this status, what we plan to do in the next phase of CMEMS is to provide a more tailored and more comprehensive polar provision in CMEMS. Even as Laurent said on Tuesday, that we have already, it is the unique portal with a transdisciplinary catalog with blue, green, white, and waves. We need to complement this catalog and okay, yes, and we need also to provide more tailored information needed by stakeholders to support decision-making for adaptation, improve satellite products on sea detection for European sea service, and I think a pan-Arctic ice chart will be of great value, and also the access of the data should be improved. Pierre mentioned before the possibility to extend the catalog of all CMEMS to extended forecast lengths, like monthly forecast length, and I think it will be very well designed for the navigation in Arctic in the future. Of course, also we are planning advances in high resolution size modeling, and the next team we are operational since last year is a very good example of what we are able to provide now in the catalog, a very high resolution and a very innovative development. This concerns also the opportunity with this model to provide the pressure and wedges, which are also very important for the navigation. This concerns also the assimilation of data, of, for example, the sea ice drift or new data. And the last point that we are willing to do is, of course, to prepare the uptake of the future Sentinel mission expansion, what they are called the HPCM, and this is very important for us. And this Sentinel expansion could be a very potential game changer in the future of the monitoring of the Arctic. So I let the floor now to Guy to continue with the PEG outcomes. So Guy, if you are ready to share your screen.
Where is it? Yeah. Just looking for the diaporama.
On the left, yes. Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, you were there.
Where is it?
Totally on the left, on your, here, yes.
Okay. Okay, I would like to briefly, good morning, continue the presentation initiated by Gilles to present, let's say, the main results and recommendations from the EC Polar Expert Group, the so-called PEG3. Of course, the draft report is still in stage of finalization, and obviously the views which are expressed in this presentation are at the time being the sole responsibility of the author and do not necessarily reflect the views of the European Commission. The report will be finalized at the end of this week and submitted to the DEFIS management. This PEG 3, in a way, is succeeding to two previous Polar Expert Group in place in 2017, with the objective to review the key users' requirement and, in particular, what would be the priorities for the Copernicus Polar missions. And this Polar Group was composed of external experts, including Gilles, by the way, plus, of course, EU DG's officers. And in the phase 2 of this group, they were joined by ESA and Eumetsat experts. What is important is to realize that the main results of this activity in 2017 was the identification of 8 main users' requirements with a first priority given to floating ice, glaciers, caps, and ice sheets, and snow parameters for operational activities in polar regions and climate application. The second major outcome was the priority given for active and passive microwave sensors. So why these microwave sensors is because they provide a full all-weather day and night observation capabilities. So there was some interesting evolution of the Copernicus space component over the last few years, resulting from discussion between the EU and Eumetsat, how this series of Sentinels currently in orbit or prepared for launch could evolve over the next decade. And it was decided by this group of partners to consider 6 additional candidate missions, so-called expansion missions, for a possible launch in the timeframe 26-28, preceding the Sentinel next generation scheduled for the 2030s. And the 3 microwave expansion missions, which were identified as priority candidate for polar users, were CMEMS, the Copernicus Imaging Microwave Radiometer, Crystal, kind of Cryosat-2 follow-on, Copernicus Polar Ice and Snow Topography SAR interferometric altimeter, and Rose-Ale, radar observing system for Europe, SAR operating at L-band. So for this purpose, mission advisory group were set up, and they developed the mission requirements document for each one of these 3 microwave expansion missions, and industrial studies were conducted by ESA, and at the moment there is still a phase 2 industrial studies in progress, and an important milestone will be the decision to proceed in the next development phase, the so-called phase CD, by the end of this year. Now, what was the purpose of this phase 3 more specifically? Was really to evaluate the benefits which would result from the addition of these 3 microwave expansion missions for polar users. And as I said, this group met for about 6 months, from July till end of December last year, and was composed of European experts plus 1 Canadian expert from the ICE services. And of course, the group was supported by ESA, Eumetsat, EA, and the H2020 Kepler project. So in short, the work of the group was primarily to review and update the requirements defined previously by the Polar Expert Groups, but also reviewing the requirements from the various Copernicus services in terms of microwave data instrumentation with this all-weather day and night observation capabilities. An important point was also to describe or explore the synergies which may result from having this satellite mission and instrumentation at the same time in orbit, and possibly identify optimum orbit phasing scenarios. The group has also a word about the non-space assets, in particular the in-situ data, as well as the capability of the ground segment to accommodate these new missions. Of course, the results are that detailed review and updating of polar requirements were made. We had the systematic review of space-based Earth observation requirements for CMES, CLMS, C3S, CMS, and CMS, considering not only the situation in 2020, but also the period covering the 21, 27, and even beyond. Of course, for each of these expansion missions, we reviewed, let's say, their specific contribution as standalone, and of course, as all together, what they would bring in terms of synergy with cross-sensor observations, in particular with a number of existing sentinels. And the focus was put on the S1 and S3 series, as well as some of the contributing third-party missions, and in particular the Canadian RadarSat operating at C-band. So this chart is very difficult to read, don't try, but essentially it demonstrates, let's say, the huge amount of work performed by the experts, identifying 44 requirements or variables mapped with their corresponding Earth observation space assets over time, starting, of course, as I said, the year 2020 as a baseline, and then exploring the prospects for the year 21, 27, and beyond 27 with the Sentinel expansion mission and the next generation missions. Of course, doing this to explore this instrument combination and synergy between the expansion mission and the Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-3, we had to take into account a number of technical constraints. For instance, the STAR instruments have limited duty cycle, they have on and off constraints. There were also operational users requirements in terms of geographical coverage of polar regions. There were also high demand for collocation of some observation, in particular from the L-band and C-band SAR. Requirements also in terms of revisit frequency of the observation, etc. Of course, all this has been done considering the operational ESA ground segment requirements in terms of operation planning, downlinking of the data processing in near real time or even in quasi real time. And of course, keeping in mind that this is particularly true for the SAR mission, that they serve also non-polar users community. So a large number of simulations were performed by ESA. And this, for instance, this illustrates, for instance, the daily coverage by 2 Sentinel-1 and the 3 expansion mission. And the interesting results was that the sub-daily coverage is achieved, and in particular, collocation of C and L band SAR measurements can be performed over a large portion of the Arctic and Greenland. The optimum configuration which was proposed was in particular dealing with the Sentinel-1 constellation. And we found that the constellation involving 3 Sentinel-1 operated at the same time and adequately spaced, which is the diagram in the center of the slide, with the 3 Sentinel at 0 degree, 120 and 240 is the best and preferred configuration as expressed by the PEG experts. Of course, this leaves a number of questions open, namely, would it be possible to have 3 Sentinel-1 in orbit in the time frame 27-30? And so this year's score depends on many parameters, and funding in particular. The group had also looked at the in-situ observation, and of course, the need for this in-situ observation is not disputed, as mentioned during the presentation and in day 1 by the European Environment Agency, not only to constrain models, but also for the calibration and validation of satellite instrumentation and product validation. The message which came out from this review, in particular taking advantage of the work performed by the Kepler project, was the present Arctic observing system, in particular the Central Arctic, is undersampled, and a number of gaps were observed, in particular in terms of timely availability, quality of the data, lack of an efficient management system, difficulty to access in situ data from non-European countries, and the case of Russia was strongly mentioned. Of course, but not the least, the sustainability of this system. They consider also, coming from the Kepler project, the need for better international cooperation and also further development of citizen science project associating indigenous population. This approach starts to be used by some space agencies such as NASA and ESA, but is still in an early stage and should be further developed. The group had also looked at the ground segment, looking whether the ground segment would be able to cope with this additional missions, and fortunately the new approach developed by ESA with this for the Sentinel, with this multi-mission ground segment architecture, would allow to plug in relatively easily this new mission. Of course, assuming that it will require the development of some mission-specific elements, obviously, e.g. some processors, mission planning, specific auxiliary data. As a matter of fact, today, ESA operates 15 Earth observation satellites at the moment, including 7 Sentinels. As I said, the cross-operation of some missions, for instance, Sentinel-1 C-Bansar and Rose-L Bansar, will require specific setup of cross-mission elements, such as the mission planning.
Guy, could you conclude? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just finishing now. The summary of the findings, of course, are obvious: continuity of space and in-situ observation, implement an efficient data management system for the in-situ, maximize the use of this expansion mission in synergy, and develop new products at level 3 and level 4. Further continue the user consultation process, in particular with the private sector. This was strongly advocated by the group. Consider the end-to-end integrated polar monitoring system, going to the, in particular, tackling the issue of telecommunication in polar regions, and consider the role and contribution of industry of the private sector, not only for space, but also for the service, the provision of services. And the last point was to really not underestimate the underlying scientific research needed and the budget for that, which is for the time being not yet included by the services. Okay. Last point is the task force will be set up this year, and the focus of the task force will be less on the space segment, but more on the services, looking at the cross-fertilization between these services. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Guy. I think the presentation was very useful to highlight also how the evolution of the services that we propose are closely linked to the evolution of the satellite observing capabilities with the new Sentinel, but also with the in-situ. So this, thank you very much for this. So we are a bit late, but don't worry, this is fine. So we'll now move to the roundtable. So I will ask all the panelists to put their camera on all the previous speakers to switch their camera off. So just to present this roundtable, so the roundtable is dealing with the evolving interfaces with the other Copernicus services and EMODnet. So remember, we had the first day of discussion on those interfaces during Copernicus1. Here we will discuss the plan for Copernicus2. So we are very happy to have with us today, so Jean-Noël Thepaut from ECMWF for the climate change, atmospheric, and the new CO2 anthropogenic service. Peter Salamon for the Copernicus Emergency Management Service. Hans Dufourmont from the Land Service. Pedro Lourenco from EMSA and the Maritime Surveillance Service. And Jan Shepherd for the EMODnet. So we'll start the roundtable with the first question to all panelists, which was on the, please make sure to have a short answer because the time is a bit short, but so would like you to summarize the main evolution that you plan for your service or for EMODnet for the next 7 years as part of the next MFF. Maybe starting with you, Jean-Noël, with and I will give you a little more time because you are different services, so a lot of activity at ECMWF. But if you could summarize, I mean, the main evolution that you plan for the next 7 years.
Thank you, Pierre. So, as you said, ECMWF will continue to be in charge of CAMS, the Atmosphere Monitoring Service, and C3S, the Copernicus Climate Change Service. And for both services and beyond the enhanced continuity, that is to continue what we are doing, but doing better, which is very important. We shouldn't forget that. We envisage also some user and policy-driven service evolution. So I will start with CAMS. Well, first of all, the exploitation of Sentinel-4, which will fly with the MTG infrared sounder, and Sentinel-5, which will fly also with the YASI new generation, will constitute a major step up and a game changer for ECMWF to improve products and services for of the CAMS service in the years to come. That will be a major piece of development. Very importantly, also, we are proposing a national collaboration program to support the member states in achieving maximum benefit from CAMS products and services in the implementation of their mandate. It's quite similar to what was described a bit earlier for CMEMS. And the vision is really that the European Union countries would have Copernicus data underpinning their national air quality information systems or national activities related to greenhouse gas emissions. And last but not least, going forward, ECMWF is planning, as you mentioned, Pierre-Yves, that as part of Copernicus 2.0, we will develop a CO2 anthropogenic emission monitoring and verification support capacity in coordination with ESA, Eumetsat, other Copernicus services, and the member states. And we are harnessing this service component on the current capacities at ECMWF in terms of infrastructure, as well as, of course, precursor research projects such as SHE, Verify, and now COCO. For C3S, beyond enhancing the current offer around the global regional reanalysis, climate data records for essential climate variables over sea, land, and atmosphere, seasonal forecast and climate predictions, and also sector-relevant climate indicators, climate monitoring and bulletins, which for some of the components we take advantage of the synergy between C3S and CMEMS, but we'll discuss this a bit later. And also support to policies in the area of climate adaptation and mitigation. The forthcoming budget will dimension to a large extent the ambitions in terms of new components, but clearly the plan is to take advantage of the now flying Sentinels in building climate data records, because they have now a certain length, and also progressively feeding into the reanalysis. We want to extend the number of ECVs in response to GCOS and propose an operational component in the area of attribution of extreme events and decadal predictions, which also is of interest to CMEMS. And the last point, and I will stop there, is that we will try to mutualize as much as we can the joint activities between CAMS, CO2, and C3S regarding all what is related to quality assurance processes, the infrastructure, the data stores, and the DIAS going forward, and also the user support and training. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Noël. I will now move to Peter for the Copernicus Emergency Management Services. So what are your plans for the next 7 years?
Yes, good morning, and thanks for having me again here today. So what are the plans for the Emergency Management Service? Well, principally, I mean, it is clear that we will continue on the evolution of the existing products and services that we have already. So that mainly includes, of course, the constant evolution of our early warning and monitoring systems, including EFAS, GLOFAS, the forest fire system EFIS, or the drought systems IDO and GIDO. But also the incorporation of continuous incorporation into our on-demand mapping products of new satellite data, and here especially contributing missions that are very relevant for the Emergency Management Service. Now, besides those, there are a couple of things that we want to work on in the coming years in addition. One is the incorporation of aerial imagery coming from drones or UAVs that, especially in hazards like earthquakes, can provide very relevant information that is currently needed to complement the information from the satellite data. We are looking at expanding our forest fire monitoring activities also globally. We have the global wildfire information system already kind of almost ready, but this will most certainly be integrated in the coming years in EMS. And then we are looking at a very, let's say, a new component. As you know, for disasters, it is very important to look at impacts. So we need good access to exposure data. And this is something that we have been lacking so far. So we are looking at including this new component of exposure mapping data into EMS. And here, we will probably start with Sentinel-2 based population distributions as is done in the global human settlements layer already, with possibility to look at other infrastructure data, for example, in the future that is really relevant for us. Now, I want to highlight two more things before I then close, and we can probably come back to those in the second and third question. Two developments that are really relevant also for the interfaces in CMEMS is our new global flood monitoring product, which is Sentinel-1 based and which will include also coastal flooding. And the new thing about this is really that we will process all incoming Sentinel-1 data and examine that for flooding, which ensures a really high timeliness of the products of less than 8 hours between sensing and having the product available. But also a really historic, good, complete archive of these kind of flood maps from Sentinel-1 data. And the second thing that was mentioned already in the first day is we look, and this we do together with you, on a possible coastal storm surge forecasting product that is also done together with an Horizon 2020 project, ECFAS, that just started. So these are a little bit the activities that we plan for EMS. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Moving to you, Hans. So the plans and the perspective from the land service.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and Thanks again, Pierre-Yves, for this opportunity. Our priorities in the land monitoring service go first and foremost to ensuring the continuity of the long-term sustainable time series that we already have in the portfolio. But on top of that, we want to put an important focus on drastically improving the timeliness of the products as compared to the first operational phase, and actually for a number of products also moving towards near real-time products, like for the high-resolution snow and ice monitoring, or for the high-resolution vegetation, phenology, and productivity products. Furthermore, we want to put some efforts in the harmonization of the land monitoring products between the three scale-based components, I would say, global, pan-European, and local hotspot monitoring, where not always things were optimally harmonized. So that needs to be tackled as well. And then we definitely also want to put some focus on the optimization of some of the products in our portfolio. For instance, in the high resolution layers, we want to perform some merging of the layers in order to make the workflows more effectively, and also to increase the production speed. So that would be, let's say, the generic objectives that we see for the coming phase. Obviously, when it comes to the relation with CMEMS, the coastal zone product, and in particular the dynamic aspects thereof on the land side will play an important role. And then also the aspects of water quality in the river systems that ultimately end up with discharges in the marine environment. So that would be the key points, to be very brief in my summary.
Thanks a lot, Hans. We'll come back to this interaction in the following part of the roundtable. Moving to you, Pedro, on the perspective for EMSA on the Maritime Surveillance Service.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for the kind invitation. So it's very simple, and I'm not focusing only on Copernicus Maritime Surveillance. I'm discussing and approaching all EMSA observation services in general. So the main objective is really the ability to fulfill our user needs, and taking into account that we have a rapidly growing user basis. And we're looking at it from two perspectives: integrating more data and getting more value from the data that we integrate. So more data means we want in the near future, in the next 7 years, to add additional data sources. So this is, fortunately, we're in a new space era. There's quite a lot of new constellations on the table, both SAR, optical, and even non-imaging systems that we want to integrate to be able to fulfill the different user needs. And of course, we want to take advantage of improved satellite capabilities. Very fast tasking, in orbit tasking is one of them. In order to be able to address use cases that we are currently not able to address on the satellite side. Going back a bit to the data sources, main ones that we're seeing and are looking into, besides increasing the capability in radar and optical, particularly on the very high resolution angle, radio frequency detection is something that we're definitely looking into, and thermal infrared is something that we definitely want to try to put in our portfolio. Linked with also data is the synergies between these assets. There's quite a lot of new constellations, quite a lot of, let's say, there's new space and old space, but there's not a lot of interaction in a way that the different assets talk with each other. So for us, it's very important that we're able to get automatically results from satellite A and then be able to program satellite B to pinpoint and tip and cue in a certain area. So on the data side, these are the main elements that we're looking into the near future. And then, of course, having more data, you need to also focus on the value. Having better value-added products, additional value-added products, more insights from satellite data sets, so ability to establish a relationship between what are derived products from satellite and other maritime relationships, establishing, for instance, investing in graph analytics for certain use cases is something that we're definitely looking into. And of course, because we're getting very good at detecting the targets that our users are looking for, or the activities or the features, but we want to go a step further. And I think in the future, the objectives should be going from detection, which is knowing what was there a few minutes or a few hours ago, to prediction, knowing where things are going, what is the evolution. So this is how we're approaching this growing user bases and new user needs. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Pedro. So we review the activity of the Copernicus services. As you know, and as was presented the last days, I mean, EMODnet is also a very important partner of the Copernicus Marine Service. So I would now ask Jan to give us some ideas on where EMODnet will go in the next 7 years before starting a discussion on the interaction with Copernicus Marine Service. So Jan, please.
Hi, I'm the only one who's not going to talk about satellites. EMODnet has been rather successful in the world. I mean, it's got 22 coastal states, more than 100 institutes sharing data. The US can't even share data with Canada, so it provides standards for the rest of the world. And I think one of our objectives is to internationalize a little bit our standards. This is already happening. We have all the countries of the Black Sea involved. We have neighbors like Norway, UK involved. We're working with China, so starting in the South China Sea. So this is one of the things that we're going to expand. Even the Russians want to use EMODnet for the Caspian Sea, so for their geology. We want to move to higher resolution, again, step by step. Try to move the bathymetry model down to 50 meters resolution. Also in some places for the geology, but often the underlying data doesn't allow that. We want to get better data from licensing operations. There's going to be a massive expansion of offshore renewable energy. It's going to come to it's going to be a factor of 5 increase by 2030, a factor of 20 increase by 2050, and the same with aquaculture is growing, and companies have to provide licensing data when they to obtain a license, and also once the operations have started, and they provide this data to agencies in member states, but the data goes into a black hole. So we'd like to get hold of these data to share. And then one big change is we're hoping to improve the way that ocean observation is organized. So EMODnet doesn't pay for any data. The data all comes from ongoing programs, but these programs are not very well coordinated. The fisheries community, the environment community, the research community, the navigation, hydrographic community, all operate different boats with their own instruments, with separate priorities. And everyone talks about the measure once, used many times, but it hasn't happened yet. The Commission is going to adopt an initiative by the end of the year to promote sharing between within member states and between member states. There's a public consultation is already open, and it's open till the 19th of February. We've had 84 replies so far, overwhelmingly positive. So you are all welcome to reply to this consultation. That's it.
Thank you, Jan. Indeed, the consultation is very important for the future activities and to ensure the development of sustained in situ observing system. So I will now move to the second question to all of you. So we have still 10 minutes for the roundtable. So, but be short in the answer. So the question is really on the main perspective for the evolution of the interfaces between your service and the Marine Service. So we had again discussion of what we did in Copernicus1, but could you just summarize what are the main perspectives for this? Starting again with same order with you, Jean-Noël.
Thank you, Pierre-Yves. Yes, so in the case of ECMWF, this coordination applies primarily to interfaces with between CMEMS and C3S, to some extent as well with CAMS, where there are some connections, but mainly C3S. And to be fair, there is already a lot of interactions, and examples include complementarity on the production of ocean ECBs, cross-referencing of relevant elements of the two portfolios. Some CMEMS products feed into the C3S European State of the Climate Report, and atmospheric reanalysis or predictions input also in the generation of some of the CMEMS products. And last but not least, Mercator, ECMWF, and Eumetsat are developing one of the DIAS platform, WEkEO, which was presented earlier this morning. And it's really a joint venture, and it takes full advantage, as far as we are concerned, on the cloud technologies, which we've built upon the climate and atmosphere data stores. So we have some knowledge in terms of scalability, because we serve at the moment about 80,000 direct users. So going forward, I think this collaboration will be strengthened. And the fact that there is a general, if I may say, cloudification of Copernicus services that will support this collaboration, as shown in the presentation this morning by Eumetsat. So now, perhaps I will insist on one specific aspect, which is very crucial between C3S and CMEMS. It's the production of ocean ECBs, where there are climate requirements, which are really specific to C3S in terms of stability, accuracy, record length, and there is a know-how in the marine community. So we are discussing very closely together with Pierre-Yves and the CMEMS people, a way of ensuring that future procurements maybe are fully aligned, possibly joined. We have to see how we do it, and we will have to discuss with the Commission. But the vision is really to fully match the requirements across both services and maximize the exploitation of the know-how in the community while avoiding overlaps in the Copernicus offer. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean-Noël, for this perspective. Indeed, a lot of interaction in the past and in the future. Now moving to you, Peter, on the perspective.
Yes, I mean, yes, I mean, as was mentioned in one of the previous presentations this morning, you know, also CMEMS is looking more towards the coastal area, and hence it's natural that we will start to have more interactions also with EMS. I mean, I mentioned that already in the first day, and obviously our main focus also, especially in Copernicus-1, was of course disasters happen mostly around the land surface. So we only started with the interactions with CMEMS in the last couple of years. But I mean, it is clear now you are moving or looking closer towards the coastal area. I mentioned already some of the products that we are planning, especially with related to flood monitoring. That includes, of course, the coastal areas. It was mentioned that we will, the river discharges are obviously a key input for many of the ocean models. So also here, this will be a link that we will continue to strengthen and further improve, I would suggest. And then last but not least, of course, the collaboration on this common product. And I think this is really something that also, I mean, was mentioned by Jean-Noël, these synergies, these common products that we develop between services together with other services is really something that is fundamental. And here I include actually, especially for the storm surge forecasting, not only CMEMS and EMS, but obviously we use also then input from land and other services as input data into such a potential system. So I stop here as well.
Thank you. Moving to you, Hans. We have been working a lot on the coastal roadmap, on how the land and the marine work together. So could you tell us a bit more on how we will extend our cooperation in the coming years?
Yes, thanks, Pierre-Yves. So as you know, we have started, let's say, with the status mapping of land cover land use along the coastline, a 10-kilometer strip. That's finished. We have there 2 timestamps available. The next step there will definitely be to go into more detail, to include also some of the small-scale coastal infrastructure elements which the user community and the feedback we got so far has been asking for. Then the next step definitely would be to tackle the dynamics of the coastline, erosion aspects and things like that. That will be a call for tender that we will organize in that coming period, and which we hope will contribute also in a better understanding of the interaction between the land side and the sea side of the coastline. And then very briefly, what I mentioned also already before, water quality aspects based. There we have two tracks. Basically, we have one track which is more a static track connecting the Water Framework Directive information to the river system network that we have in the reference data set EU Hydro. But there is also the dynamic water quality aspect, monitoring the changes in water quality based on Sentinel-2 data. And that's something that we will also deal with in the coming period. I think these are the main elements for now, where we hope that the interaction between CLMS and CMEMS can further take place. All of this, of course, as mentioned by others as well, within the WEkEO DIAS setting, where we hope that bringing all this data and products together will allow us to also extract much more useful and relevant information to underpin the policies.
Thanks, Hans. And moving now to you, Pedro. So how do you see the evolution of the interfaces between EMSA, the Maritime Surveillance Service, and the Copernicus Marine Service?
So thank you. Outside of the technical and integrated service domain that I discussed briefly on the first day, I think the biggest growth in terms of interactions is really in terms of validation to reporting and guiding of future policy discussions on the maritime transport side. We are currently developing knowledge and services to estimate various emissions from ships, and really looking how our activities can have synergies with the Marine Service future portfolios. Other activities that will entail additional cooperation will be the European Maritime Transport Environmental Report, which is a very broad assessment of the impact of maritime transport to the environment, and other initiatives such as the Zero Pollution Action Plan. So in conclusion, and again, not going into the integrated maritime side and the more technical discussions, the policy and the reporting angle will definitely be a big driver of interfaces with the CMEMS in the coming years. And we'll be very happy to share and discuss with the Marine Service the monitoring expectations linked with this new broad range of requirements.
Okay, thank you very much, Pedro. To conclude this roundtable, I will ask Jan, to tell us, what would be the recommendation to develop further the interfaces and interaction between EMODnet and Copernicus Marine Service. So Jan, you are muted.
I once asked our people to draw out a diagram of the relationship between EMODnet and Copernicus, but it looked like spaghetti. It was impossible to understand. So I think we will continue the way we're going. Probably one of the changes will be to be integrated in future EU initiatives such as Destination Earth, Twin Ocean. At the moment, they're just names, but the provisions of data from these will be Copernicus and EMODnet, and there will be services built on top of those. So I think that will be the big change that will happen. But cooperation will continue to be close.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Jan. Indeed, it's very important new activities on where we see, EMODnet and Copernicus Marine Service will collaborate a lot, as part of Destination Earth and of course all the other Copernicus services. Since we are now a bit late, I will close this roundtable. Again, thanks a lot to all panelists for your time and for the nice interaction. It's essential that we interact together as we did in the past, and we have a lot of perspective for an even more better integration between our different services on EMODnet, and I think it's a very strong asset for Copernicus2. So I would just ask you to shut your camera, put your camera off, and I will now move to the final part of this session, which will be a few words from our two advisory committees, so the User Advisory Committee and the Science Advisory Committee. So first, I will ask Felipe Fernandez to give us a perspective of the Champion User Advisory Group on this. Okay, Neville. Okay, you. Oh. No, Neville, you can start if you want. Let's start with Neville. So we'll start with the scientific committee with Neville Smith and Ananda Pasquale as co-chair of our scientific committee. Neville?
Apologies, I thought the schedule had me first. So this will be reasonably short. I'm doing this on behalf of the co-chairs of the STAC. First point and first message is that we believe we really do have a very sound basis, and you've seen that over the last 2.5 days of presentations.
We don't see your slide. Yes, okay. It's we don't see it fully. It's too large.
Do you want me to start again?
All good for the participants.
Is it okay for participants or not?
Yes.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
Okay, you've seen it all before, Pierre-Yves. So it's state of the art. We have very advanced systems, and you've seen multiple evidence of that. We have some great people working on the systems in CMEMS, great scientists, great people in the applications and the data and in the user area. And we've got well-developed connections now through to the user and policy interfaces. And that's all evolved over the last decade, and particularly over the last 5 years. So that's a great point to start. The evolution from our perspective involves a lot of different learnings from the tax and from the monitoring and forecast centers. Also an underlie here, because we haven't heard a lot of that in this assembly from the other international players. There are many groups working on different parts of this problem globally, and there's a lot that we can learn from, and we do learn from their experiences. The service evolution that was described on Tuesday, both 1 and 2, we have learned a great deal from those, and it's helped shape our future direction. The Ocean State Report has also been a good learning experience. We've had pathfinders from H2020, and then of course there's the satellite and in situ rollout, as well as the user uptake learnings. With the thinking for CMEMS2 really began 5-6 years ago. Our first document was the Strategy 2016 document. Then we developed a strategy and R&D plan through a workshop, whilst also providing input into Horizon Europe in 2019, and ended up with a strategic guidance document, which was published for CMEMS in April 2020. And while I won't go through these little points in detail, this is the envelope within which we work, and it helps us guide priorities, priority settings for the R&D plans of the future. The R&D challenges, these you've already touched on before. Angelique presented these on the first morning of the first day. The preparation for this will continue this afternoon when the STAC meet. This draft of the R&D plan has 8 components. 2 of them are focused on the next generation of modeling systems, including data assimilation across the spectrum of activities from white, blue, green, ocean, as well as high resolution monitoring and forecasting, the actual production steps and the science behind it. We of course have a focus on the marine and coastal aspects as well, which you heard from Angelique today, as well as on the Arctic Ocean, which you also heard earlier today. Biogeochemistry and marine biology is an area which is very important for us to give priority to and focus. We have a great dependence on the space and in situ observations and providing impact studies to guide their development. Ocean climate products, indicators and projections are also an important area for for us to look at into the future, and particularly providing robust references in the sense that Jean-Noel talked about just a few minutes ago, and then higher level data products, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and big data processing. They're the areas we will be focusing on. So thanks, Pierre-Yves. I think that's all I need to say here.
Thanks a lot, Neville. I mean, the guidance of the STAC was really invaluable on all the work which was done during Copernicus 1, and also the preparatory work for Copernicus 2 was really extremely rich and fruitful. I mean, to help us to define, I mean, state-of-the-art system. So we now move to the view of the Champion User Advisory Group. So again, thanks a lot, Felipe, to be with us today and to give us the perspective of the Champion User Advisory Group on what we propose to do as part of Copernicus 2.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm here again to talk on behalf of the Champion User Advisory Group. And as I said on Monday, it's important to highlight that the Copernicus Marine Service is a user-driven service, and therefore end user needs are a key for the Copernicus Marine Service evolution. As you can see here, the Copernicus Marine Service is answering a lot of sectors, and therefore in this group we have more or less 15 members that are working with end users in all these activities and services. Okay. So in this presentation, I would like to give a view about which are the expectation for the Copernicus 2.0. And we can divide these expectations between the continuity plans and the new services. To do this, we undertook a survey among all the members. We asked about different topics, and we try to classify between essential, important, and useful. As you can see from this graph, for example, the new digital services we consider that are essential. The probabilistic forecasting and extended forecast, we think that they are useful. For the climate reanalysis and the Arctic Ocean monitoring and modeling and forecasting, we have different opinions, and this is probably because we are a diverse group and we have different experts and therefore different opinions. In terms of the future, in terms of the new services for Copernicus 2.0, we consider that the coastal zone monitoring and forecasting is essential, and also the marine climate projections we consider that is also essential. We see that the CO2 and biology is important. And to answer this question about what will the Copernicus User Advisory Group do in Copernicus 2.0, we think that as we did in this young group, the members will share knowledge and experiences regarding gaps and recommendations about current and also the new services. But also we would like to reinforce our role. As I said, this is a young group, a young advisory group, and we think that we have to reinforce this role in the future with the Copernicus Marine Service. For doing that, we are trying to design a new approach. In fact, this afternoon we have a meeting with all the members of the Champion Advisory Group. You can see all of them here. We also will bring a new Champion Advisory Group for this Copernicus 2.0. We hope to have all the members that are currently here, but we also want to include new members to cover all the services and all the activities that the Copernicus Marine Service is answering. So this is all from my part. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Felipe. I mean, it was quite useful to have these short views of both the scientific committee and the user advisory committee for Copernicus 2. Those are two important panels. We also very much expect that during Copernicus 2 to also favor the interaction between these two advisory committees, because we really need to have a user on science going on by on to progress on the services that we propose. So this will be extremely important, and we are very happy to have both of these groups with us today and in the future. I think given the time, so we took more time, but I think it was also good to take enough time to expose you our plans for Copernicus 2. So we received a series of questions, actually a large number of questions. on the plan. We will not be able to do the Q&A online, but we will do it offline. Just to summarize the different questions we received, actually we received a lot of questions of precision asked for what we plan to do for the coastal in terms of satellite, in terms of modeling coupling. I mean, those are some technical issues there. Just maybe to answer briefly that this will be done step by step with consultation, and we also expect to have a research and development activity to prepare the services. There was also a lot of several questions dealing with the in-situ observing system, both for the coastal, the interaction with the research infrastructure. Again, this is something we really have in mind, and this is also in our plan to continue interacting with all research infrastructure, not only the existing one, in particular for the coastal. We are expecting to interact much more with initiatives such as Garric in terms of research infrastructure. We also had a few questions on the Arctic. Again, this also shows the interest of participants on this evolution for the Arctic and how we link with the new satellite activities. So we'll provide all the participants with an answer to all these questions after the General Assembly. But I think it's no time to end this first session of this morning. So we will reconvene for the final session. So you will have to use a new Zoom link, which is so the session will start at 11:20. Session will be chaired by Pierre Bayrel, and this is really will be dealing with the supporting framework for Copernicus2. So I think it will be again a very stimulating session. So go and click to this link to connect to the last part of the General Assembly. So I'll be back at 11:20 sharp. So thanks a lot and see you soon.